And you need to know that you're not allowed to curse on Power and Politics. They've told me that as well. You said you've been waiting to get back into cabinet. What did you say when you got the call? Please don't curse.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. We're going to CBC, Power and Politics. We're going to be checking out our new cabinet minister, Canadian identity, Marc Miller. This guy is a hoser. Catherine Cullen is as bad as any journalist at CBC is. Let's see what kind of tale they're going to concoct. Failing upwards, Marc Miller. Check him out.
We have a guest in to talk about this moment today at Rideau Hall. Prime Minister Mark Carney welcoming a new minister to his cabinet. Marc Miller replaces Stephen Guilbeault as Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, and he's minister responsible for official languages. Joelle Lightbound, the Minister of Government Transformation, Public Works and Procurement, picks up the job of Quebec Lieutenant, and Julie Debruzen adds nature to her environment and climate change portfolio. Got one of them here. Marc Miller is the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and Minister responsible for official languages. You getting used to hearing that yet, Minister?
Not yet. It's been a couple hours.
You have come back into cabinet under some very particular circumstances. Of course, the departure of Stephen Guilbeault. He has been very public about his difference of opinion with the Prime Minister. He was on Tout le monde en parle just last night, almost in tears, telling Quebecers about the fact that he thinks the government is moving in the wrong direction. How does it feel to be coming back into cabinet at a moment like that?
Well, frankly, Catherine, thanks for having me on. A bunch of mixed feelings, really. I have a lot of respect for Stephen and what he's done for the country. He's a very emotional guy, passionate about the environment and Canada. He leaves some big shoes to be filled in that particular portfolio that he cared very deeply about. And you see him, he was on the verge of tears last night on Tout le monde en parle. As for my role, as you know, I've been a cabinet minister for 6 years. I haven't been for the last 8-9 months. Entirely the prerogative of the Prime Minister for whatever reasons, but I've been contributing to Canadian politics for the last 10 years. I got into it because I love my country and want to see it go in a direction that I feel I can help shape. It's no secret to anyone that I was restless over the last 6 months, but again, I'd be a hypocrite to suggest that the prerogative of the Prime Minister isn't what it is. We all serve at his discretion. That's fine for me to say, but it's also tough on families. So this is an opportunity for me to get back into cabinet, to have my voice around the cabinet table in a country that is potentially facing some national unity issues. And I'll be able to exercise my voice in the way that I do it in a portfolio that is important for the arts and cultural sector, official languages, which is the identity of our country, and our symbols. Any country can't lose control of its symbols, and this is a portfolio that can help make sure that doesn't happen. I do want to ask you some broad strokes questions about your portfolio in a minute, because I realize it's been, only a minute that you've been in the portfolio. But there's something I'd like to ask you about that's a bit more big picture. I mean, you make the point that you were in cabinet under Justin Trudeau. You've had some time away. You're coming back now. I feel like in the last little while, Canadians have perhaps gotten a clearer sense of exactly what Mark Carney stands for and how different it is from what Justin Trudeau stood for. So we think of the Alberta MOU, feminist foreign policy. I mean, even the budgetary cuts that we saw at the beginning of last month. What does it mean to you? In what way is it different to be a Mark Carney cabinet minister than a Justin Trudeau cabinet minister? We'll see. I mean, it's been an hour or two, but they are fundamentally different people. I did support Mark Carney for his leadership and during the election. If I did not believe in Mark Carney, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have run for him in the first place, or I wouldn't have sat as a backbencher for him. So I fundamentally believe in the man. I think Canadians have also, in fairness to your point, Catherine, yet to discover exactly who Mark Carney is. And that's something that does take time. We need to give space for the Prime Minister to define himself and the direction of his government. He did campaign on a lot of these issues, including the need to cut some of the operational budgets in the public service that had grown disproportionately in the last little while, and to make some very, very tough decisions in the face of headwinds that, yes, the previous government faced, but not to this extent and degree. Whatever you think about pipelines, I have my own views, but you feel free to share them right now. I'm not the big salesman of pipelines. I do believe that if there's an economic motive, we need to give it a shot and it needs to make sense. I also understand Albertans who don't want the door shut in their face constantly as soon as they decide that there's an idea on the table. So I think in that sense, the Prime Minister's move made sense. But if you think that Thursday was difficult, it gets even tougher from here on in trying to build that pipeline. I think we have to be very realistic about it. It will take time, and it will take that consensus building that you've heard from a number of areas, including the Premier of BC and Indigenous groups in particular.
Well, let me just ask you then in that regard before we move on to your portfolio. Your colleague left because he couldn't endorse a pipeline. He left cabinet. Does entering cabinet mean that you're on board with this MOU? You can endorse a pipeline if one does come to fruition? Well,
we have to see what the next steps are. I think, to my earlier point, those next steps are crucial. I could, and I've said this time and time again, I could wrap my head around a pipeline. But like many Canadians, I think there are a lot of conditions that need to be fulfilled that aren't in the MOU, and I think the Prime Minister has acknowledged as much.
Well, and then I might ask you also as well about consultation, given your previous role working with Indigenous folks. To what extent does the government need to up its game, I suppose?
Well, it's got to start now. You can't roll over Indigenous communities, and those pipelines won't get built without the broad consent that's needed in order to get them. And you've heard the Healthsick, the Haida, among others, be quite strong in their views. The first step starts in sitting down with them and engaging in a respectful way and seeing what the concerns are, what can work, what can't work, and what that spectrum. And getting the yes is a very complex matter with Indigenous groups, but it doesn't start with shutting them out.
With regards to your portfolio, I told you we'd get there. Online harms is one that you would be familiar with. I mean, obviously as an MP, but particularly having been in cabinet before. This has been an ongoing issue for the Liberals. Again, I'm not going to ask you specifics, but what should the takeaway be for Canadians in terms of your aspirations in dealing with what is a very complex, thorny issue, personal issue for a lot of people, and highly politicized?
Absolutely, and I think on your last point, it has gotten, I think, probably unduly politicized. There are legitimate concerns over freedom of expression, but I think we haven't really, as a society, tackled the impact of what social media does, juxtaposed to the way I grew up, for example. There are people that, just looking at my kids, that are affected by every single thing that comes in on these stupid things. And if you can't regulate them in a proper way to prevent them at times from taking the ultimate terrible decision of taking their own life, we're failing them as a society. At the same time, I think there is an ability, and there absolutely has to be, because the Constitution demands us to do it, is to protect people's freedom of expression. Threading that needle is difficult, but I think it's something that both I'm seized up, but the Prime Minister as well, in getting a piece of legislation in front of Parliament. We've had a couple tries at it; they haven't been entirely successful, but I want to see that happen.
Official languages. You're an Anglophone, Marc Miller. How might that complicate that role?
Look, the dictionary would call me a francophone as well if you looked in it. But it is true that I was my dad comes from Nova Scotia, Anglophone. My mother comes from Quebec, several generations. French in the family, they got assimilated. But it does affect me quite personally. I've raised 3 children in 3 languages, their mother tongue Swedish, English, and French. French is harder because English is so ubiquitous in North America and Canada. It's easy to fall by the wayside, and that can't be the case in Quebec in particular, but in other parts of the country where French is the common language. It has to be. It starts with working with the proper government, including the Quebec government, to make sure that they have all the tools necessary to reinforce the French language, and to make sure that we are ensuring that we have the ability to raise our children in both official languages, including in the federal government's primary area of responsibility, which is the Francophone community outside Quebec, including large pockets in Ontario, Franco-Ontarians, and in New Brunswick. We haven't done the greatest job in making sure that we'd have the proper supports in, but there's a Francophone strategy that has several $1 billion attached to it. And in my old portfolio, I doubled the immigration into French communities, Francophone communities outside Quebec. That is work that needs to keep going because it goes to the core of what I mentioned earlier, the symbols and identity of what we are as a country, a bilingual country.
I've got a fraction of a second for this, and you need to know that you're not allowed to curse on Power and Politics. They've told me that as well. You said you've been waiting to get back into cabinet. What did you say when you got the call? Please don't curse.
I didn't say FT, but the reality is that this has happened over the last 24 hours, Catherine. It was a surprise to me to get a call from the Prime Minister. He called me over to Rideau College, we had a long discussion about what the portfolio would look like and how I could contribute. I just didn't want my best recommendation to be the Prime Minister, that I wasn't the guy for him for the particular thing that he'd been thinking about. And so I wanted to have that conversation. I wanted to have a conversation afterwards. It's hard to say no to the Prime Minister in any circumstance, but I wanted to be able to have the conversation with my wife. That all congealed over the course of about an hour or two. So it's new, but I'm happy, and I'm glad to be back because I really want to make a difference for this country.
Okay, busy guy. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you.
Marc Miller, Minister of Canadian Identity, Culture and Official Languages.
Oh, yeah. We'll wrap it up right there, gang. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. We cover Canadian federal politics right here. I work very hard at this channel. I spend 84 hours a week at least at this because it takes a long time to watch all of the real politics stuff from the House of Commons. I follow the legacy media news also to filter the propaganda that they're tossing at naive Canadians, liberal voters, people like that. I invite liberal voters to watch my channel. You will learn something about Canadian federal politics right here, about the duping that the legacy media pulls on you. I don't really blame liberal voters for being naive. They just believe the news or whatever their sources that they're watching tell them. That's not the case. There's a lot of duping and deception going on. Watch my channel. You will learn more about what's really happening, and I doubt you'll be a liberal supporter after you see these guys in action on the House of Commons floor, in the committee meetings, in the scrums. We do cover legacy media. We'll watch what goes on there too. So that's it, Aaron. Like, share, subscribe. I really would appreciate your subscription. We're not going to try to sell you anything here. I'm not going to try to sell you a stupid sticker. Let's just learn about Canadian federal politics. That's it. Let's save our country. There's still time left. That's it. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Again, I appreciate everybody that does subscribe and just watching the video. Share this with somebody if you really enjoyed it. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.